Let's just go ahead and get started. I'll share my screen. Okay, the first thing you probably need to do, that you need to know how to do, is to save a graphic from PowerPoint that you can use in Adobe. And this process used to be very simple, and they've made it a lot more complicated. And I just found out earlier this week. So here's the new steps to do that. Can everyone see those on my screen?
We can see.
Are you guys planning to work alongside, or are you just going to watch today?
Watching.
Yeah,
Watching here.
I'm just watching.
Okay, so I'm not going to give you time to type the stuff in yourself. Basically, what you're trying to do is you're wanting to end up with a slide that is 1920 by 1080, and they've taken away determining what the actual pixels are that are used, and so you're putting in inches that makes that equivalent, and 20 inches by 11.25 inches on the custom slide setting is what worked. And then you go to a tab that looks like this in export, and I just picked PNG, and I saved the stuff as PNG, but you can also save it as JPEG. If you want TIFF, you can have to do a save as another file format. So if you save those, that's good. So for Premiere, I'm going to open up Premiere. Staying organized is always super important. I'm clearing my computer off sometimes a couple of times a week. So I'm just going to create a new project. I like to put the date in. Oh, it helps if I have it highlighted when I type. It just gives me a way to stay organized. I'm going to put this on my desktop for now. In the settings, what I look at is I look at scratch disk, because I'm always, when I'm working off the laptop especially, there's a huge potential of just running out of space. So I like to know where all the associated files are. So when I pull it off to a hard drive to save off, I can clear all the space off. So just make sure that everything in these scratch disk settings are set to the same as project. So everything's rounded up in one spot, so you can just pull that whole folder and be done of getting rid of things. So then I'm going to just hit OK. Let's bring in a little bit of footage. You can, let me go back here to Premiere. You can like click here and you can import, and it'll take you through a few steps. What's a lot simpler is I just open up the desktop, and if I have footage I'm going to use, I can just, here, let's pull that in for an example, and let's pull this in for an example, and let's pull this in for an example. Okay. So now I just have the footage in there. If you look at the properties, I was talking about things you record with Zoom, and they can be all over the different places and size. So if we look at the property tab, this image is 640 by 360. This one is actually shot the wrong direction, so it's opposite that. And this one is shot 1280 by 720. The reason I want to get you to get into the habit of always making your graphics 1920 by 1080 is it'll squeeze down to these sizes and look well. Graphic files don't squeeze up. So, okay, to simply make an edit on one of these, let's take the rock candy one. It's a good example. And what I do is I just go down here to new sequence from clip. It picked up all the settings and everything, so I don't really have to worry about the technical side of things. You can see here that she did sort of an introduction, but doesn't get to the real show down to here. She was waiting for people to log in. So I'm just going to roughly clear that off, pull that up to the beginning of the show. Go here. I'm going to hold down my command key. I think it's control on Windows, and zoom in. I still didn't trim it enough, so I want to get closer. Trim it, pull it over. So that's pretty close to where I want to be. First thing I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at the audio. I'll just pull that wider. The audio wave kind of looks pretty good. Let me move where you guys are. Okay. The looks kind of good. Can you guys see the green meters over to the side?
No. Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So basically you want those green meters to bounce into yellow, occasionally kiss red. And so her audio is a little low. There's a couple of ways to adjust that. One, there's just this big rubber band right here. I don't know if you can see that as I move it up and down, okay? So you can adjust it up with that. But if the audio is like super low and you don't have enough rubber band, what you can do is you can just right click on this, and there's a setting called audio gain. And you can just drop some audio gain on that, and I would try 6 dB to start with. Hit OK. You see the waveform got a lot bigger for everything.
So this week's theme, if you haven't caught on yet, is STEM, or more specifically.
So that's how I would adjust the audio on a clip. Then I would go all the way to the end of the timeline. This one ends pretty much when she's done. You know, I might trim a little bit of it off there. You know, she's a lot cleaner at doing this than I am. I got like huge amounts of stuff left over at the end of mine I want to get rid of. Shift Z allows you to see the whole timeline at one time. So then the next thing I would do is I would want to add some graphics. So I do the same thing. I know that there's some graphics I have in here. If you haven't downloaded them, you need to download stuff from Rob's Toolbox and the PowerPoint templates. And I'll try it. I'll just make up a sheet. I'll send Heather later that she can distribute to everybody so they know where all these resources are. So, but you'll want to have things from the toolbox, so that way you don't have to make them on your own. Okay, so I go here and I keep everything sort of in this one folder, and I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to drag this beginning movie off, drop it in there. I'm going to want this key dragged off, drop it in there. And let's just pretend This is my PowerPoint introduction slide. I'll just drop that in there. So then what I do is I grab this clip, I pull it back a little bit. And if I want to begin with the logo, I'll put the logo in. The logo has maybe a little, it's too big for one, if we can see here. So I'm just going to zoom in on that. Double click it so it comes up in this preview monitor. And then I'm going to pick Effects Control. Now, whenever I select the position button, if I make this smaller, you can see the box outline of the video. So what I just do is I just pull that down until it's about the size of the box. You can see her original video recording is pretty small. Okay, then I would look, you know, maybe there's a little bit I need to just trim right there. I just pull that over. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is there's a video track here, so I'm just going to pull that up to level 2. I'm going to look at my entire timeline, pull this all the way front, zoom back in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 4-H Live.
Say I thought that was good. I could just put a add default transition. That puts a dissolve in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 4-H Live online learning class.
Say I didn't like that. I could just change the duration of the transition here by typing in numbers, or I could just delete it off. Say that I needed a different, I wanted the logo and I wanted a title. I have this audio screenshot that I could just drop on there, pretend that's a title. So I was in another meeting and didn't have time to make one. We're just going to scale that down and say that would show the title. And then I could put the dissolve here. And then I think she starts talking too soon. I'll just slide that back in to where I would want her to start talking. So then the logo would run and you would have the title go on. Now, say that I wanted to add in some music. I know that I got some music left over from a project right here. Let's see. Just pull this track in. Drop that down on another audio track below my current audio. And there would be a musical introduction I could use.
Hello, everyone, and welcome.
And let's make that bigger so we can see it. I know the audio gain in the music just needs to go down, so I'm going to hit audio gain. Instead of putting a 6 in, I'm going to put a -12 and hit OK. So then the music is close, and I could use the rubber band to adjust it. If I hold down my command key, I can click on the rubber band, I can put these spots in, and then I can adjust them. So then the music comes in a lot louder. And then reduces before she begins to speak. And then I want to go a little bit. I'm going to put in some more marks. And I'm going to pull that down. And then just to clean up my look, I'm just going to change to the letter B, which also I can just, I've been using that arrow. Now I can just change to the blade. I'm just going to cut that off, change back to the arrow, and delete the rest of the music. So there'd be putting a little bit of a music beginning on it, okay? The next thing is if I want to drop in a title for her. So I have this. Whoops, I picked the wrong one. I need to pick this one. Now right now we don't see it because again, I double click to bring it up here in the preview window to make sure I have the correct source up before I go to the effect control, okay? So then what I want to do is just pull that, well, if I want to see where it's at, I can click there and I can see that it's still huge. So I'm just going to pull the size down until it fits. Let's make this window a little bit bigger now. I'm going to go 200% so we can see it better. So then I have a title bar there. And I'm just working right here and I'm just going to add the name in. So I'm just going to click the text tool and I'm going to click there. Let's try that again. Let me unhighlight that. Click the text tool. Now I have a graphic on type of there and I'm just going to type in, you know, name here. That came up huge. So then I still have the text tool, highlight it. I'm just going to select it. And if I look over here in effect control, then I look for, let me move that out of the way. I don't know if you guys can see, but the Zoom session bar was in my way. So you see here where it says text. You don't want to affect the scale in motion or up here. You want to go here in text and you want to see the font. I'm trying to tell everyone that you can just use Arial. So change the font to Arial and then pull the size down. That looks relatively about correct. I'm going to go here, pick the arrow, and just move that onto the bar. Okay, I'm going to unhighlight that and text and pick another one. And I'm just going to type in job title. Sometimes I might put University of Missouri Extension, depending who the audience is and what I want them to know. Same thing. I'm going to squeeze that down till it looks about appropriate and move it into position. So now you notice in my timeline here, I'm just going to make all those even up.
I want to welcome everyone who is new today who might not have joined us for day 1 or 2. We're going to post those videos here shortly.
So that just sort of pops on, pops off. And that's okay. But if I want it to dissolve, I could just click and apply default transition to all of them. Or the other thing I do sometimes, if I know I'm done correcting the names and stuff like that, I'll just select all 3 of them and I'll pick nest. And normally I'll like name it really well, because if you got to find this stuff later to change it, naming helps. So I'm just going to hit OK for time. And so now that's nested together. So if I need to move it around, I can easily move it around all together, and I can just click once to put an effect on it to make it. So now it just dissolves on, and it dissolves off. A lot of times now that it's nested, it's really nice also because sometimes I think that bar just runs too high for the photo. So now if I go over here, I selected the nested sequence, it appeared up here in effects control, and I'm just using the position. I push down on that, and you can see how that allows me to move it up and down. So maybe I really want it about right there. So that's basically what I do to get a clip ready. Any questions?
So can you go over how to take out background noise?
Not well, because it's pretty hard to do. You really have to almost get the recording right when you make it. Background noise is super hard to get rid of. What you can do in effects, let me move my bar out of the way. There are some audio effects, and you can try noise reduction. And here's a clip that's called denoise, and you can drop it on there. And then when I bring that up, I look in effects control, I roll down to this audio part. You can do some, edit some of the adjustments here. Her clip doesn't really have a lot of noise on it. Your best thing is probably just to hit this default here that says heavy noise reduction. And
Okay. I'm just thinking for us, a lot of the time, a field adjoins a highway.
oh yeah, and you guys are also stuck a lot of times using phones or microphones that are not on the person, things like that. And so, yeah, you guys are just in a difficult position. But I think that heavy noise reduction would be your best simple option.
Okay, thank you.
What other questions do we have? Well, let me show you my problem video that I loaded in here. If I double click on it, let me get rid of that. So this is all formatted wrong, and that just doesn't load well with YouTube. So what I would do in this case is I would select new item, select sequence. I normally pick this ARRI 1080p 2997 because I want a big timeline to deal with something like this, and I hit OK. So I have this sequence, and then I'm going to take her problem video, and I'm going to drop it on there. Now, Adobe is trying to match up everything, and I'm going to say, no, thank you. Okay, I'm going to keep my existing settings. I'm going to double click on her. I'm going to go up here. Let's get this back to fit, because this is a much bigger timeline. So then I got her video. I need to make it fit in there. So I'm just going to take scale. I'm going to scale that up until it fits. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this, I'm going to pick it up a level. Now you got two options at this point. One, if you want to just fill it with black, then I could just go over here and I could create a new item and just pick black video. And there's black video, and I can just drop it here and drag it out for however long the presentation is. The other option in the production toolbox, there's a couple of vignette backgrounds. I'll just pick this gold one and drop that in. And I could put that background on it and do the same thing, drag it out for the entirety of the presentation.
Okay, where do you flip her so that her name tag is right?
Yeah, that was another problem. So if I go to effects, so yeah, and then so you just drop that on. Normally when you're looking for something in effects, you can just type in here, like I'll just look for crop. Then that just, see how it made the crop pop up? Because I don't always remember where things are buried at.
Mhm.
What else do people need to know? Come on, Patrick, you got to have some good questions for me.
I was actually curious about that flip name tag as well. How did that happen, Michael, as far as her name tag being flipped? I mean, seeing the mirror image, I guess.
Phones, whenever you put it in selfie mode, they flip the image in the phone because it's disorienting. They want it to work like a mirror. So when you tilt your head to the right or the left, your head in the image corresponds to that because people are used to looking at mirror images. And so she had a setting left or didn't turn a setting on to ignore that fact.
Oh, thank you. I've had that issue where I've shot videos and haven't realized until I went to view them that I had done that.
Yeah, well, now you got a nice, clean way to fix it. You know, thanks to Linda bringing that up. That's a good point.
I also appreciate the way to deal with the portrait videos versus the landscape videos, because again, I shot some videos incorrectly and wondered how I could use those.
Well, you know, something you could also do is you could actually turn this to your advantage, okay? So here I'll go on the video and I'll just go up here to motion and I'm just going to slide her. Oh, come on. I don't want to put in a number. I want to slide. So if I wanted to slide her to one side, and then what I could do is, one, I could just generate a bunch of PowerPoints and I could place them over here. Let me just grab, where's that audio screen capture I had from earlier? So if I just put that on there, let me grab this. So now I just highlighted it so that its options are up here. If you're unsure, sometimes I double click because then I see visually what I'm editing on, because when I get a lot of layers, sometimes that's important. So then I could just pull this scale down and I could just move it. And then I could move that in. So I could have some words or something or photos that would augment what the person's talking about. And you can still always just go ahead. Let me get down here on the timeline and zoom in. You can always still just add well, of course, it's ridiculously small. So, you know, you can turn something misshot like that into a bonus, but then you're talking a lot of work because then you got to have basically content to fill the whole presentation.
Yeah, I see. That's great. This is going to be a lot of fun to work with.
What other questions do we have?
Okay, and you said you're going to send have Heather send a list of where we find all of these tools, like the university logos and that type of thing.
Yes, and there's a font request form. You know, I did this with setting it up with Arial because if you don't have the university fonts on your computer, Arial is a universal font that is
Right.
accepted. But yeah, there's pages for that, and you can request that you need the official fonts to put into your work, and you can actually get those and load those.
Okay, thanks.
Here, let's just get fancy on this text. I'm going to go to Effect. I'm going to put in Drop. So we could actually put a drop shadow on it also. And here, over here, there should be the oh, where did my drop shadow vector? Here it is. So I just increase the opacity, and then that changes the distance. So if you need something to stand out, if it blends in too much, you can try putting a drop shadow on it. A lot of times drop shadows are soft, that'll make the edges soft. Sometimes you might want crisp and hard. And here's a cool thing. Say that I like that drop shadow. So then don't really apply things like drop shadow until you get the majority of your editing done, because it takes a lot of processor to put that on the screen. But when I get close to being done, I start applying those details like that. So what I can do here is I can just go copy and then say that this is the screenshot that I put there. That could be a PowerPoint still or something, a photo that I may have taken of a plant close up. And what I want to do is I'm just going to paste attributes. I'm going to make sure everything is turned off except drop shadow. And I'm going to hit apply. And so now you can see it put a drop shadow and on there. And let's just say that also I want to put one, in this case, on her video. So now everything has a matching drop shadow, but that doesn't look like it really does. So I could just adjust that a little bit. So now it looks more like they all match. Okay, what other questions do we have? Okay, let me just show you the export real fast. So I go up here and I pick export media. If I exported audio last time, so I'm just going to pick H264. If you're going to Facebook or some social media, that has all the presets you're going to want. If you're saving a master, picking a high bit rate, because you might want to save a master before you save for the different formats. But say I'm just going to take this straight to Facebook. There's the Facebook settings. That makes everything match Facebook standards. Then if the output, if this is poorly named, I'll never be able to find it later. I can just click on it. I can rename it. I can decide where I'm going to put it. I can put it, create a new folder and pick where to save it. And then I just click export. Couple of things to be aware of maybe is sometimes you'll want to pick entire sequence. If you noticed, there's also the setting that says sequence in and outs. So let me just cancel that. If I would have put a mark here, say mark in, and go there and mark out. Now, when I go to export, that says sequence in and out. It's only going to export that small piece. If I pick entire sequence, then it's going to export all the video. Oh, wait a minute, I didn't want to actually do that. Any last questions?
Yes, we're here, sorry.
Well,
I don't think so.
It gets super disorienting because basically when I get in that full screen mode, then I got everybody's pictures hidden and everything. And so and it's good everyone has their mics on mute because that allows my mic to come through. But, I just don't hear anything. It's just dead silent and I don't see anybody. So.
Yeah, I'm certainly going to need more training and more playing around with it. And I just think hopefully some stuff sinks in as I listen to this or watch this. So, yeah.
Well, I thank you a lot. So,
Yes.
and if there's anything that you think is helpful for everybody else, if you'll just send it to me, this is Heather, then I'll forward it to the fields, all the specialists for you.
Cool. I will do that. And just keep these jobs simple. If it's a real complicated video, you need to have a video person making it anyway. But,
Right.
Just do simple things and build your confidence up as you go along. Okay. Well,
Okay.
I think our time's up. So
Thank you.
thank you guys. Okay. Bye-bye.